Hello, everyone. It's story time. And what story do we have for you today? From the Earth to the Moon by Jules Verne, retold by H.Q. Mitchell and Marilene Malgoiani. It was 1865, and the American Civil War was over. A group of talented investors of guns and cannons met in the Gun Club in Baltimore, USA. The world was at peace, so there was no longer any need for weapons. The club members had nothing to do. One of them, J.T. Mastin, had an idea. Mastin said, "Didn't America once belong to England?" Major Elphinstone said, "It certainly did." "Well, now it's our turn to take England. We will have a war." Colonel Bilsby said, "But the President of the United States will never agree to this." "Gentlemen," said Mastin, "I'm afraid we're going to have to close down the Gun Club." The Gun Club's president, Impey Barbicane, was the most famous designer of weapons in the USA. One night, as he was sitting looking up at the night sky, he had an idea. "Well, perhaps it is now time for a completely new project," said Barbicane. "I must call a meeting for the Gun Club immediately." The next day, all members of the Gun Club received invitations to attend an important meeting on the 5th of October at 8 p.m. When the day came, Barbicane stood up to speak. "I know that we all want to continue using our skills of invention. Until now, we believed war was the only way to do this. But I've thought about it, and I have an idea. I think you will like it." All of the club members shouted, "Hooray! Hurrah! For your idea!" Barbicane continued, "Well, here's the plan. I suggest building an enormous cannon. We will call it the Columbiad and use it to fire a capsule to the moon. It will not be easy, but with your help, it might be possible." All of the club members shouted again, "Hooray for Impey Barbicane! Hooray for the Columbiad! Hooray for the moon!" The cheering and applause lasted for 10 whole minutes. Eventually, Barbicane was able to speak again. "Yes, yes, my friends, we will put our flag there, and the moon will become the 37th state of America." The Gun Club members lifted Barbicane up and carried him around the streets of Baltimore until late into the night. The next day, all American newspapers wrote about the extraordinary plans of the Gun Club. Soon, the only things people talked about were the moon and how to get there. Everyone was moon mad. There was one person, however, who doubted the success of the experiment. This was Captain Nichols. During the war, Nichols made metal covers for ships to protect them from the Gun Club's weapons. Now he was jealous because no one remembered him, while Barbicane was famous. Barbicane's plan is too dangerous, thought Nichols. The capsule will fall back down and kill lots of people. It simply won't work. The moon is too far. No cannon is powerful enough to send a capsule so high. It's a terrible waste of money. I must do something to stop him. Meanwhile, Barbicane wrote to the excerpt astronomers at the Cambridge Observatory in Massachusetts for advice. In a few days, they sent him all the information he needed about the moon and its movements. "So, Mastin," said Barbicane, "the moon will be nearest to the Earth on the 4th of December next year. If we aren't ready then to send our capsule, we'll have to wait another 18 years and 11 days. Mastin replied, "Since it will take 4 days to get to the moon, we'll have to fire the cannon on the 1st of December. Okay, my friend, write that date down. The 1st of December it is. We have just over a year to make all the preparations. We must begin at once." Barbicane chose a team of the best inventors in the gun club and announced that they had to work fast to be on time. Mastin was so excited that he ate one sandwich after another to calm himself down. Barbicane said, "The capsule will be very large and heavy. I've calculated that the Columbiad will have to be 270 meters long." "But it will be impossible to lift," said Mastin. "We don't have to. We can dig a deep hole and then melt iron and pour it inside to build the cannon underground." Mastin shouted, "Wonderful! Now we must think of another thing. What metal should we make the capsule from?" "Ah," thought Barbicane, "it must be both strong and light. Some metals are very expensive, but I'm not sure we can make it. We'll think of something." Far, far away in Philadelphia, Captain Nichols was still sure that Barbicane's plan was going to fail, and he kept writing letters to the newspapers about it. One of them contained a challenge to Barbicane. Nichols wrote, "Firstly, it is impossible for anything to travel at the necessary 11,000 meters per second to get to the moon. Second, I bet $1,000 that Barbicane won't get enough money. Third, I bet another $2,000 that he won't be able to make the cannon. Fourth, I bet $3,000 that the capsule will burst into flames. And also, I bet $4,000 that the cannon will explode. Finally, I bet $5,000 that the capsule will fall back down after a few seconds in the sky." Well, a few days later, Nichols received a letter from Barbicane with only one word on it: "Done." Before any work could begin, they had to find some millions of dollars to pay for the iron, other metals, and everything else. Barbicane had an idea. He said, "I'll write a letter asking for money and I will send it to newspapers across the world. All people will know about it. I'm sure they'll help us." And he was right. People from all over the world decided to send money. Some sent more, some less, but everyone wanted to join in. Mastin said, "We can do it. We have enough money now, and Nichols owes you $1,000. At the next gun club meeting, they discussed the best place to launch the capsule from. "It must be as close as possible to the moon," said Mastin. Colonel Bisbee said, "So, it has to be either Florida or Texas." For many weeks, there were terrible arguments between the people of these two states. The gun club members didn't know which one to choose. At last, the president made a decision. "Texas has many, many towns," said Barbicane, "while Florida has just one. So, I say Tampa, Florida." All of the gun club members shouted, "Hooray! Hurrah! For Tampa Town!" Barbicane and Mastin set off for Tampa to choose the exact spot for the construction. The journey was long. They had to go through tropical forests and across rivers full of alligators. One of these almost grabbed Mastin. They eventually stopped at the top of Stones Hill, and Barbicane made some calculations in his notebook. "This," said Barbicane, "is the place." "1,500 workers and their families arrived at Stones Hill and built houses to live in during the construction. Ships and trains brought all the iron and other equipment they needed for the cannon. First, they had to dig a hole 275 meters deep. The engineer, Murchison, took care of this huge task, which lasted from the 4th of November until the 10th of June. "Congratulations, Murchison," said Barbicane. "You've done a great job, and so fast." "Thank you, sir. We all worked very, very hard." In a 2-kilometer circle around the entrance to the 275-meter deep hole, there were 1,200 ovens for melting the iron. Mastin said, "All people will want to watch this." "I'm afraid it is too dangerous," said Barbicane. "We can't let the public go anywhere near." At exactly 12 o'clock on the 9th of July, Barbicane fired a gun, and the melted metal started going into the hole. There were thick clouds of red smoke, and the ground shook. Mastin almost fell in. Then they had to wait for 5 whole weeks for the ground to cool and the iron to become hard. Barbicane said, "At last, The cannon is ready. Now, Captain Nichols was furious when he heard the news. Now he had to pay Barbicane another $2,000. However, everyone else was thrilled, and people from all over the world came to see the famous Columbiad. Special big baskets took people all the way to the bottom of the giant cannon. Of course, Barbicane, Mastin, and their friends were the first to go down. Everyone was very enthusiastic, and the celebrations continued for many, many days. Mastin shouted, "Hurrah! Hooray! For the moon! Hurrah! Hooray! For the gun club! Hurrah! Hooray! For the Columbiad!" Members of the gun club had just 2 months to finish making the capsule. On the 30th of September, Barbicane received a very surprising telegram from France. Change the round capsule shape to a conical rocket. I will go inside it. Arriving on the Atlanta. See you soon, Mitchell Arden. Most people thought the idea was crazy or that it was a joke, but not Mastin. Mastin said, "What a wonderful idea! Now there will be a real journey to the moon." The Atlanta arrived at the port of Tampa on the 10th of October. A large number of boats surrounded it, full of excited passengers. They all wanted to see the brave Frenchman. Mitchell Arden soon appeared and waved happily to the people. Everyone wanted to shake hands with him. He was a tall, strong-looking man of about 40. He had a large head covered with red hair, big round eyes, and a big smile, and he looked confident and friendly. Barbicane and Arden were very different, though, in character and appearance. However, both men were good and brave with a great love for adventure. "So, have you really thought about this?" asked Barbicane. "Are you sure?" "I am," answered Arden. "I have a chance to visit the moon, so why not?" "You're a hero," said Mastin, "a true hero. But have you thought of the dangers and difficulties?" asked Barbicane. "Well, I'd like to speak to everyone tomorrow, if that's okay. I think I can answer any questions you or other people may have." The next day, a huge crowd of people gathered under the hot sun to hear the Frenchman speak. Some were too far from the stage to hear Arden, but they were still happy to be there on a historic day. "I am not a scientist," said Arden, "but I believe that one day it will be easy for everyone to visit the moon and other planets. Travel is getting faster and faster all the time. You see, at first people used to walk everywhere. Then we used carriages, then trains. Distance is only a word. It doesn't really exist." Immediately Mastin shouted, Hurrah! Hooray! Distance doesn't exist! Mastin was so excited and was waving his arms so much that he nearly fell off the stage. "Let me ask you this," said Barbicane. "Do you believe there is life on other planets?" "Yes," answered Arden. "I'm sure there is life on other planets, maybe even on the moon." Just then, Nicholl appeared near the stage. "Well, sir, let's return to our subject, the journey," said Nicholl. "How do you plan to survive on the moon with no air?" "Are you sure there's no air up there?" asked Arden. "Of course I'm sure," said Nicholl. "It's a scientific fact." "Then I will make some air. Science will help me," answered Arden. At this, the crowd cheered loudly. "And if you get there, how will you come back?" asked Nicholl. "I won't. I will stay there," said Arden. The crowd gasped, and then all noise stopped. Nicholl continued to shout at Arden and list the many dangers of the journey. "You will die. The fall onto the moon will kill you. The stupid man who thought of this ridiculous, impossible experiment is responsible for all this nonsense," shouted Nicholl. Barbicane stood up, furious. "Who are you?" asked Barbicane. "I'm Captain Nicholl." "Aha! I thought it was you. You have insulted me, sir. We must fight a duel. Meet me at 5 o'clock tomorrow morning in Skrusner Forest." "I will be there with my gun," said Nicholl. "Goodbye." The crowd lifted up the wooden stage and carried it, with Arden on it, all the way to his hotel. Arden went to his room. He was so exhausted that he was asleep in seconds. Before long, however, he woke up from loud knocks on his door. "Get up, quick," said Mastin. "We must hurry to stop the duel. We mustn't let them fight. You are the only person Barbicane will listen to." The forest was dark and very quiet. The two men searched for Barbicane and Nicholl. The first man they found was the captain. He was trying to free a bird from a giant spider's web. "Arden, why are you here?" asked Nicholl. "You are a kind man, Captain Nicholl," answered Arden. "I've come to stop this duel between you and Barbicane." Mastin said, "And I'm Barbicane's best friend. If you want to kill someone, kill me instead." "Stop this nonsense," said Arden. "Please. Look, there he is." Barbicane was sitting under a tree, writing something in his notebook. "I have found a way to land safely on the moon," said Barbicane. We'll use water. We can... Where's your gun? Shouted Nichols. It's time for the duel. Calm down, friends, said Arden. Barbicane, you believe that the rocket will go straight to the moon? Captain Nichols disagrees. He says it will fall back to Earth. You are both good, brave men. Why don't you both come with me? This way you can find out who is right. Nichols and Barbicane looked at each other and said together, Done, done. Great idea, Arden. Great idea, Arden. Together. Now the news spread quickly, and soon Arden was even more famous. Everyone wanted to meet him. Hundreds of women wanted to marry him and even wanted to go with him into space. Arden was not interested in all of that. He was happy with his friends Mastin, Barbicane, and Nichols, talking about the journey from the Earth to the moon. He felt very proud. However, when he received a letter from the President of the USA himself, Arden was now a citizen of the United States of America. Another important thing they had to do before the 1st of December was to build a huge telescope. With that, astronomers would see the capsule when it was near the moon. When it was ready, they had to carry it to Long's Peak in the Rocky Mountains. It was the highest peak in the USA. It was extremely difficult to carry the long, heavy telescope up to the top, but everything went well. The astronomer said, "At last it's in place. We can now look at the most faraway stars thanks to the moon expedition." By the end of November, the rocket arrived at Stones Hill Railway Station. Inside it was like a small house with 4 round windows and a door. Barbicane found a way to make oxygen from potassium, but they still had to test it. Mastin said, "Let me live in the rocket for a week to find out if you can all survive." His friends felt very worried about this idea, but agreed. 8 days later, Mastin came out smiling. "Look," said Mastin, "I'm fine. I've even put on weight." The next stage was to fill the bottom of the Columbiad with gun cotton, a special kind of explosive. They were very careful, lowered the rocket inside the Columbiad. On top of the gun cotton, which was soft enough for it to sit on, Barbicane was very nervous. He didn't want anything to go wrong before the 1st of December. It was just 3 days away. Barbicane shouted, "We've done it! Now we have to decide what to take with us in the rocket." They took plenty of food and water for 2 months. Barbicane said, "I'm sure we'll find water on the moon." "I'll send food once a year and letters with news," said Mastin. You can take some seeds and grow food on the moon. Barbicane said, We'll also need some tools and warm clothes. Arden said, And guns. The moon people might not be friendly. Finally, it was the 1st of December, the most important day in the history of the world. The sun was shining. Every 15 minutes, more and more spectators arrived by train until a huge crowd was on Stones Hill. Everyone was nervous, all except Arden. He walked around smiling and joking. For him, it was just another normal day. When the moon appeared, everyone cheered. Then the three adventurers walked to the rocket. People shouted, clapped, and sang to wish them luck. Mastin couldn't stop a tear from rolling down his cheeks. Goodbye, dear Mastin, said Barbicane. Goodbye and good luck, my friend, said Mastin. I will never forget you. The three men gave one last wave and entered the rocket. The crowd was silent, and all eyes were on the Columbiad. The countdown started. 37, 38, 39, 40. Fire! The explosion was massive. The ground shook. Huge red flames rose, and the rocket shot up into the sky. Mastin, who was standing near the cannon, flew through the air and landed 36 meters away. At first, it wasn't possible to see the rocket because of all the smoke and clouds. Mastin left immediately to go to the telescope on Long's Peak. Day after day he was looking for the rocket, but he could see nothing. He was beginning to lose hope. Then, on the 12th of December, the weather changed, and he saw a tiny dot through the telescope. The rocket, said Mastin. There it is. The rocket was going around the moon. It was in orbit. Mastin said, Now my clever friends have to find a way to land on the moon. I'm sure they will. And they did. But that, my dear friends, is another story. Thank you so very much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you again. Take care.